Hello friends, hello professionals, and welcome back to my channel, The Sea of Regulation. Simone here, and I'm back with another video in relation to DNFBPs that I promised I'd bring to you. Who needs to conduct customer due diligence, also known as KYC, and that would be the lawyers, the accountants, and the notaries. Yes, amlcft requirements do apply to you. But before I dive into this bit of content, let me get my usual disclaimers out of the way. I am a financial services regulator. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a professional advisor. And the views on this channel are all my own and not the views of any regulatory authority or international standard setter. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. So a few videos ago, I started to touch on DNFBPs, designated non-financial businesses and professions, and some of those include real estate, notaries, auditors, accountants, lawyers, trust and corporate services providers are also in the bracket, and I forgot casinos, but we're going to get to those, don't worry, we'll make sure we hit on everyone. Now, as it relates to lawyers and accountants, a lot of people in those professions, or at least for the legal fraternity, don't think that amlcft requirements apply to them, and they couldn't be further from the truth. Now, it's not that amlcft applies to all lawyers. It depends on what you're doing. And FATF has put out typology reports in relation to all of those areas that I've just covered. And I'll definitely make sure to include them in the description below so that you can see for yourself, Don't take my word for it, especially if you're a lawyer. I think there are things in there that if you've not read the typology report, you might find interesting. So let's drill down first into the lawyers. Now, not every lawyer is going to be caught in the scope of the amlcft requirements. And in some jurisdictions, lawyers may be laughing to themselves and saying, that doesn't apply to me. You're actually putting your jurisdiction at risk if you are conducting certain activities and not carrying out amlcft provisions in relation to your clients. Now, another thing that lawyers like to say, attorney-client privilege. Well, again, not necessarily. Now, in terms of what particular areas are caught, I can tell you that certain areas of civil law are definitely not caught. So divorces, custody and family disputes, those things definitely fall out of scope. But if you're a lawyer and you are actually not familiar with this, it's okay. It's definitely okay. You can become very up to date in terms of what is required and actually be a pioneer in your jurisdiction to make sure that, you're actually doing something for the benefit of the jurisdiction that still sits within your billable hours. Joke. Or is it? Maybe. But let's dive into what exactly lawyers would do that would cause them to fall in scope. One of the areas that lawyers tend to be involved in quite often is real estate. Now, I had a prior video in relation to real estate agents. I'm going to make sure to leave that in the link below. But lawyers are sometimes brought into play because of land issues, subdivisions, family disputes, or even just a transfer of ownership. If you're getting a mortgage to buy a piece of property, guess what? Those banks typically require lawyers to make sure certain documents are properly ratified, so they're properly signed and executed, and the law firm may be requiring and relying on the bank to do that, which is introduced relationships, reliance on third parties. That's recommendation 17 of FATF, but I'm getting off point. Lawyers have a critical role in terms of carrying out due diligence for their own clients. And there's nothing barring you from relying on someone else. However, you have to still obtain that information and hold it within your possession as the lawyer. Now, there are other things that lawyers do that would bring them into scope. Some lawyers would manage the assets and affairs, administer certain properties or accounts for their clients. Again, that is not necessarily just having money received into your client account for a case that's coming up, but actually managing the affairs of a particular client. It could be a high valued client, a high net worth individual, or a company. Lawyers are also engaged in helping to reorganize companies and other legal structures. So in those particular cases, what tends to happen if you're reorganizing? You might have new people coming in and old people going out. You would need to, again, make sure you're conducting due diligence in relation to that. Now, I'm touching on some, but there are other areas that lawyers would be caught in scope, but I want to get on to notaries. Now, notaries, or in some jurisdictions we call them notary public, they're actually discharging an important function in attesting to certain documents on behalf of a public authority. Now, it may seem like a simple thing to notarize a copy of a passport or notarize certain legal documents, but you too are caught in scope to carry out amlcft provisions. And that customer due diligence, that pesky customer due diligence, is it that you're actually seeing this person or know this person for whom you are providing a notarized document? Because that notarized document carries a lot of weight. You are confirming that this person is who they say they are, they've sat before you, or the documents are true and fair, or whatever the attestation may be. You are now acting on behalf of a public authority, and a lot of trust is placed into notary publics. But if you get it wrong, if you're just notarizing documents to collect a fee, or you're not being sufficiently diligent and making sure that the person that's sitting in front of you wanting that document notarized is actually who they say they are, and the document that you're being presented with, the original, is not a really good fraud. In the luxury market, they call them super fakes. They exist in relation to government identity documents as well. But it's important for you to carry out adequate due diligence to make sure that you are not facilitating someone with nefarious intent, so a bad actor. And it may seem like a simple thing, especially in some of our jurisdictions. We think that these things can't happen. But I remember a few years ago in one particular Caribbean jurisdiction, there were two women from a G7 country that came in with really good fraudulent documents, passports. And they were trying to get certain documents notarized and apostilled and to file certain things, and they were almost through. But luckily, authorities in the jurisdiction got a tip and they were able to address their minds to arresting these criminals. So again, as a notary, you might think that, hey, it's a simple job. I don't really have to put a lot into it. Let's not overthink it. Now let's touch on the accountants. Full disclosure, in a former life, I was an auditor. And auditors are not necessarily caught in scope because we're looking retrospectively. We're looking backwards in terms of the activities of a financial institution or whatever organization we are auditing. But for accountants, you're dealing with live information, money, data, people, everything is live. And when you're dealing with those persons, again, you might have some fund administration going on, not for mutual funds, just in terms of the assets for your clients, or you might be involved in, again, real estate. That keeps coming up. It really does. You might be involved in a matter that requires you to carry out customer due diligence. So guys, before I make this video too long, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to make sure to include all of the FATF typology reports in the description below. And if you are in any of these sectors, lawyer, accountant, notary, and you have questions or you have comments, something you've experienced, I definitely would like to hear from you. So guys, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with your friends and people who you might think are interested. And if you're a lawyer, please don't sue me. I'm acting in good faith here. I'm acting as an independent party, trying to just educate. And again, full disclosure, this is just a discussion to bring awareness to an issue that I think is not necessarily well known to the general public, and in some cases, even with the legal fraternity. But until my next video, guys, I'll check you on the next one.